What makes Demon Slayer so good, you ask? Ha ha ha! The style and artwork, you fool! Okay, yes, I know, this is the generic answer to that question, and I won't even front with you, man. It's true, at least in part. Demon Slayer is just that anime right now, and by that anime, I mean it's probably the most visually impressive and stylistically inspired product on the market. Like, dude, I hate 3D. I think it almost never works in anime, and it has ruined far more than it has ever had any right to. I'm looking at you, Berserk 2017. Get out of here, just leave. But, to my surprise, Demon Slayer even does their 3D well. If you don't believe me, I'd urge you to just take a look at it with your own two eyeballs. I love this aspect of animation in general because, since it's a visual art form, it's frankly impossible to ignore something when it's this visually striking. When you see this show's art, you should just be impressed. It's that damn good and everybody knows it. However, the truth is, if Demon Slayer was just eye candy and all of its critical acclaim was based on this alone, then I'd agree that the show was, well, overhyped or even bad and a disappointment. But to argue that the grand majority of Demon Slayer's, let's say, goodness stems from its artistic style would be a crying shame in my opinion. Just because art can be skin deep and can look immediately impressive at a glance, doesn't mean there isn't depth worth exploring there. Juicy depths of narrative richness, painstakingly effective world building, and compelling potential-rich characters. Too many times have I seen people lean on Demon Slayer's artistic excellence when trying to determine what makes the series so stellar. But if you ask me, and I know this is a hot take, Demon Slayer's phenomenal art isn't even the most impressive or compelling aspect of the show. I know, this might seem like a pretty controversial take on the matter, but at least give me a second to try and validate it as we discuss what makes Demon Slayer so good. So let's get one thing straight. I am a plot guy. To me, the most important aspect of absolutely any story is the story. Shocking and controversial, yes, I know, but I promise I'm sharing this with you for a reason. See, since I am a plot guy first and foremost, visual style and crisp, clean animation don't really immediately matter to me. Usually. I'm always more focused on the words characters speak, the actions they take, and especially how the world around them reacts to their general presence, i.e. how the characters' actions affect the narrative and dictate the flow of the plot. This is essentially a fancy way of saying I'm a harsh critic, and shiny things don't usually distract me from how bad something is. Usually. On top of this, as many of you may know, I'm kind of just maybe a wee bit of a contrarian. When I see people hyping something up to the moon and back, it makes me just a little tiny bit skeptical of its actual quality. If you can see where I'm heading with this, then good for you, you get a pat on the back and a stack of cookies. What I'm trying to say is, the stage was set for me to dislike Demon Slayer, and to point out each and every single one of its flaws. I was ready to show the world just how much shiny visuals and a ball gag waifu had blinded them to the truth. So, I watched the show, and, to my surprise, well, gods be damned. The story actually made sense, which I know is a low bar, but this is Studio UFO we're talking about here. Don't even fucking ask me what the hell's been going on in the Fate series because I haven't played the 5 mobile gacha games and watched the 50 different and not chronologically organized anime series required to understand just what the hell is going on. However, not only does Demon Slayer make sense, its plot, narrative structure, and flow are all inherently tied to the characters it's put a spotlight on. I.e., the characters in this story all exist for narratively validated reasons. Not only are they consistently tied to the progression and completion of several key events, but those key events are more often than not completely hingent on character-defining traits that wouldn't be possible if certain characters were replaced. This is just another way of saying the characters in this story exist for more than just an aesthetic or stylistic desire. They exist because they fundamentally need to in order for the plot to progress and for there to be an actual story. Take a look at Tanjiro for a crystal clear example of what I mean when I say this. Tanjiro is without a doubt the most important character in the series, and in my opinion, the most well-written one at that. He is exactly the kind of character who needs to exist in order for this series to progress. Tanjiro is kind-hearted, fair, and self-sacrificing. He's the kind of person who won't judge someone with glaring flaws, nor shame them, abandon them, or terrify them. Rather, he's supportive and reliable, urging others to be the best versions of themselves they can be, without overtly excusing the bullshit thoughts or beliefs that hold them down. He's the kind of person who doesn't take personal offense, even when it's been fully intended. He is kind-heartedly naive, a genuine person who doesn't get caught up with petty feelings, unless of course you insult his sister. Rather, he is someone who lives with their beautiful heart written right out there on their sleeve. The kind of person it's damn well impossible to hate, even if you're a demon. He has been through hell, and yet he smiles at nearly each and every face he sees. The kind of person who makes you a better person just because you've come in contact with him. All that being said, it's not like he's perfect and good at everything. He might not be the best teacher, and he might not necessarily be the sharpest tool in the shed. Hell, he might even have an issue with intense rage that has nearly led to him dying in the past. He is stubborn, quite literally as hard-headed as they come, and his quick temper has oftentimes led to profuse apologies when his fire finally calms. But then again, isn't that kind of the point? He's a rounded character with flaws, emotions, skills, and a wonderfully distinct level of characterization. He has a personality and a particular way of being and feeling. What's more is, he is all of these things, and yet none of that has ever been told to us. Rather, it's been tastefully shown through dialogue and key moments where his actions speak louder than his words ever could. Tanjiro is the perfect main character for this story. This isn't just because he was born to be the protagonist, it's in large part because of the key story elements that have shaped him and the world around him. See, it may initially be hard to understand how Tanjiro can be so kind and all-around good, while still being a demon slayer who slaughters demons wherever they rise up to hurt others. I mean, what kind of thing makes a person as kind-hearted and self-sacrificing as Tanjiro train relentlessly to become a fine-tuned weapon capable of slicing boulders into fine ribbons? Even among other demon slayers, Tanjiro proves himself to be a guiding light of mercy, understanding, and goodwill. Well, his family died. No, they were butchered, with not even a single one left alive save for a newly turned demon sister Nezuko. This event in my mind is just so perfect, and after watching the first season, I've come back to it with a profound sense of appreciation. I mean, think about it. Everything that happens is pretty much required, in my mind, to make the story work the way it does, to turn Tanjiro into a character who drives the narrative forward. Tanjiro couldn't have been left with even a single family member that was truly alive because, well, he's such a good person and family member that more likely than not, he would have devoted his life to making sure his remaining family was taken care of. He is just too self-sacrificing, in my opinion, to abandon even one of his family members had he had the chance to take care of them. So his whole family dies. But how do we make sure he doesn't become consumed by a desire for vengeance and transform from a loving and kind-hearted hero into a cold-blooded, morally compromised anti-hero? That's where Nezuko comes in. She survives, albeit permanently changed. However, her mere existence is enough to give Tanjiro hope that maybe, just maybe, they can find a cure. That being said, Nezuko's consistent effort at not going completely berserk and succumbing to her demonic desires gives Tanjiro a consistent booster shot of hope that maybe even a demon can reject its compulsions, and that if she can, maybe he too can harness and control the infernal hatred he harbors for certain demons. Nezuko being a demon gives Tanjiro plenty of reasons to express genuine sorrow when he's forced to kill any of the demons who stand in his path. In each demon, he sees not a monster, but a man or a woman who was changed and forced to become a monster by the one who has truly earned Tanjiro's fervent hatred, Muzan Kibutsuji, an interesting villain all on his own. Nezuko allows Tanjiro to see behind the mask, so to speak, a consistent reminder that demons were all once human, and that has a profound effect on him, as no one is more aware of this fact than Tanjiro, and no one is more sympathetic to demons than him, at least not anyone in the first season and movie. Tanjiro has many specific reasons to feel and be the way he is. He's a complex character, three-dimensional, and not just when he's been animated to be that way. What I'm saying here is that Tanjiro fits his role as the main character of the story perfectly. He is the perfect kind of character to lead us along this narrative adventure. He cannot be substituted by anyone else, and all of the events occurring throughout the story serve only to benefit by his inclusion. And, well, look, I know that sounds pretty obvious and inherent in just about any story, but allow me to remind you that it isn't always guaranteed and rarely is it optimized to this extent. I mean, look, I love me some Dragon Ball. Hell, I already made a video about it, and I'm thinking about remaking it just because I didn't do it justice the first time. But after a certain point, and especially in Super, Goku ceases to be a character of any real note aside from his strength and ultimate ability to beat the bad guy up. For the purposes of the narrative, Goku is largely not really relevant. I mean, hell, he beats up Boo because I guess only he is pure-hearted enough to use the Spirit Bomb on that scale, even though the concept of being pure-hearted is pretty goddamned vague. He beats Hit because I guess he's the only person who can learn Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Kaioken times 100. He beats Jiren because he mastered Ultra Instinct and then directly contradicts himself for the win. Goku as a character isn't really important, compelling, or super relevant. He is merely the guy who has the skill and is strong enough to beat the bad guy. If you just had, I don't know, Krillin use the Spirit Bomb and be arbitrarily pure-hearted enough to make it this big, or Vegeta be arbitrarily strong enough just the same way Goku is when he fights all the big bad villains, then everything that happens in the story stays the same, if not improves, because of how much more characterized and personable the side characters for Dragon Ball are, or at least, were. The point is, the narrative for Demon Slayer not only makes sense, but the characters who fill each of their roles seem to be damn near perfect for them. It's not just Tanjiro. Don't get me wrong, I think he's a phenomenal main character and arguably my favorite, but Zenitsu, Inosuke, Kanao, Urokodaki, Kibutsuji, Rengoku, all of these characters shine so brightly in the positions that they're put in. Hell, even Shoichi, the child introduced in episode 11, plays perfectly off Zenitsu in the small piece of the story he exists in. The list goes on and on and on. All of these characters add so much to the story in their own ways, whether it be through comedic relief, touching and impactful dialogue, or heartwarmingly tender moments. Their traits, their personalities, their flaws, fears, and strengths, they all play off of other characters in the story and serve the overarching narrative better than any other character could. For evidence of this, look to Kanao and Tanjiro's story arc together at the end of Season 1. At first, I thought to myself, wow, another boring murder waifu. Geez, never seen that before. But then she interacts with Tanjiro and we get to know her. We begin to understand her struggle. We begin to see her depth as a character, and we begin to understand why it is that she is in fact silent. Turns out her crippling traumas exist to serve the narrative beautifully, as she is able to bond with our hero in a sincerely touching way that really only serves to deepen both characters and build a relationship that feels meaningful. One that I personally am excited to see developed further. Then there is Inosuke, who may seem a tad bit one-dimensional or tropish at first glance. Aw geez, the fight machine with a huge chip on his shoulder. Never seen that before. But we begin to see something more, something shown in both overt and subtle ways. There's a hero beneath the rage, a caring person traumatized by a life of hardships and abandonment, a man whose heart desires family and connection just as much as it longs for battle and supremacy. And it is only because of the cast of characters around him that we're able to be shown this. The cast of characters all serve the overall narrative, and if you ask me, this is truly skillful storytelling. It is efficient, and most importantly, it's engaging and endearing. Characters and the narrative living in harmony, boosting each other up, with our cast driving the story forward in compelling directions with almost each and every action they take. Compelling narratives like this are few and far in between, and as a person whose dream has always been to write and tell stories, excellence like this is hard to ignore and oh so delightful to behold. I gotta admit, Demon Slayer served as a point of inspiration for me when I was writing my own comic book. And as a little shout out to the mangaka in charge of Demon Slayer, I gotta say, The manga art and paneling for Demon Slayer is certainly its own treat to behold. But before I get sidetracked, the point is, the characters and the narrative have been created to not only coexist, but to play off of each other with aplomb. The narrative as a whole feels super tight and flavorful. It flows much like the elegant Sakuga waves off Tanjiro's sword, which is a perfect segue for me to talk about the inherent style present in this anime. How the hell do you make breathing techniques visually pop? How do you make them seem cooler than other anime logic abilities? Wanna know how? This is how. These are breathing techniques, for God's sake, and they reek of personalized style and gorgeous inspiration. Sure, the animation itself is goddamn phenomenal, but even just the idea of the visual effects for the techniques is genius. I could sit here and read to you a description of these attacks and you would probably still be impressed, even if you couldn't actually see anything, because the concept behind them is easy to understand and immediately exciting. Different breathing techniques manifesting as various forces of nature and mankind's influence. That right there is style, and style, as we all know, is stylish. Even if animation isn't there to back it up. But boy, oh boy, Demon Slayer's animation definitely backs up the style with fantastic displays of action. This style is present in every single aspect of this show, from its attacks to its character designs to its world building. Honestly, I had a hard time believing that the first season was only 26 episodes because each episode accomplishes so much with such little time. Developing characters, establishing new rules, and moving the plot forward with a sense of appreciated urgency. In what winds up being one season, Demon Slayer accomplishes what I would easily consider to be worth at least 2 seasons of many traditional anime. If you need a concrete example of this that proves it isn't just my own anecdotal opinion, look no further than Kyojiro Rengoku. Now, I will be spoiling the movie here and the beginning of the second season, so if you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and skip to this point right here. So, with exception to the few scenes he was in during the very end of Season 1, Kyojiro as a character really only had one movie to develop and become a character of note. And yet, he does in one movie what most side characters can't do in an entire anime. He becomes compelling and was loved and missed by the fanbase pretty much immediately. This isn't just coincidence. The Mugen Train movie did an astounding job of establishing him as a character, giving him meaningful ties to our main cast, and making him feel as powerful as his title and position would imply, all before inevitably adding emotional juice to the story through his untimely death at the hands of one of the most powerful demons in the world. Again, this is yet another example of how deceptive this show can feel. Rengoku was only in one movie and had like 5 minutes of screen time in the first season, and yet blam! Just like that, he's become one of the most topical and beloved characters in the modern anime sphere of influence. This is not coincidence. Demon Slayer excels artistically more so than nearly any recent anime that comes to mind, but beyond that, Demon Slayer shines because it is a tight narrative with compelling characters and a clearly defined destination. Demon Slayer is so good because even if this story were animated by a rinky-dink podunk studio, its narrative pull is so substantial it would probably still garner meaningful acclaim. The story is charming, somber, exciting, and endearing, all wrapped into one convenient package that shines even brighter because of its artistic excellence. That is what makes Demon Slayer one of the best anime I have seen in a very, very long time. It's what makes the world at large shower it with praise, and it is sure as hell what makes Demon Slayer so good.